Baseball Podcast, bringing you our second segment. But before we do that and go back to it, I would like to ask you again to please like and follow the show. And we do get a number of questions from viewers, so to ensure the question does get read in the air, please use the link gsmcpodcast.net. It really does help the show, and it really does mean a lot. So thank you so much for that, and let's get back into the show here. So we're talking about our second segment, which is going to be talking about my favorite team, of course, the Philadelphia Phillies. That's a joke. I don't really like the Phillies, but we'll be talking about them, and believe me, I'll be keeping my bias aside. Don't you worry. I think a lot of people have come to like the Phillies over the past few years because of their playoffs and their environment. So that's kind of interesting. I mean, they were kind of a team that not a lot of people liked, but I think when a newer generation of baseball fans, a lot of people have started to like them because their playoff atmospheres are so electric. Their stadium's beautiful. They have such fun players, guys who just hit home runs. So they've become a really fun team. But just going off of that, I don't know why I really went into that kind of spiel there, but going on to our second segment here about the Phillies, we had some news over the weekend that I would like to talk about, and it's some good and some bad, more bad than good, but it's still something. So first, we're talking about the main story here, which is Taijuan Walker. He will be starting the season on the IL with a shoulder issue. Not great for the Phillies. Taijuan was obviously signed to a huge contract in the offseason last year, a 4-year deal worth around $80 million. A deal most people were extremely perplexed about, to be completely honest. A deal people, including myself, were looking at and saying, why? Why? Like, why would you do that? And we've been proven right so far. He wasn't very good with the Phillies last year, and he was pretty awful in spring training as well. And now we're starting the season on the IL, so isn't even pitching reliable innings for the Phillies. So contract has not turned out great, and I still don't know why they gave it to him. I understand they saw something in one of his pitches where they thought if you throw that more, you can be an amazing pitcher. Hasn't worked out so far, I'd say. So that's not great if you're a Phillies fan or you're Dave Dombrowski, who is believing in Taijuan Walker. But I don't think this deal was ever going to work out, really. I still don't know why they gave it. There were so many other good options. Giving him 4 years as well, and at that clip, like that was crazy to me. So not a good deal. So with Walker being on the IL, it does raise a lot of questions for the Phillies rotation right now. I think there were some questions before, especially with the back end. You had him, you had Christopher Sanchez. Both players were kind of question marks. Sanchez because he's never had the full opportunity to start really in a full season, and with Walker, he's struggled a lot, so that's something that isn't great if you're a Phillies fan. Now, the top three of that rotation, of course, is amazing. You have Zach Wheeler, you have Aaron Nola, you have Ranger Suarez. Nola's kind of a question mark, not really a question mark, but something you want to watch out for during the season. Someone you want to watch out for during the season, I'd say. He didn't have the best season last year and just got a huge contract from the Phillies, so if he doesn't perform again, we might have to look at this as that's just who he is right now. So I think that is someone to watch here if you are a Phillies fan and just see what happens with him. So that's something to see here and see what does happen with Aaron Nola and the Phillies. But after that, I mean, of course, Zach Wheeler, top 3 pitcher in baseball. Ranger Suarez, really, really good. Christopher Sanchez, a good depth guy here, elevating to a starting role because of some issues in the starting rotation because of some guys you let walk. So I think that's another guy you have to watch, see what does happen with him. So overall, I don't think the Phillies are in for a entirely awful rotation with Walker being out. Again, it's not good that he's out, but he's not that good anymore, I'd say. I don't think he's going to bounce back, unfortunately. He's a very likable guy. He has a great personality. I think just seems like a good dude, but has not done well with the Phillies uniform on. So with him being out for a little while, however long it is going to be Spencer Turnbull as the 5 starter for the Phillies right now. Turnbull was a guy who was signed to a minor deal for the Phillies this offseason, coming over from the Tigers. I think he's a really good depth guy, and I think in a pinch he is a guy you can rely on for some starts, for some innings, and that's exactly what it is right now, a pinch. I don't think Walker's going to be out for too long. Now, it is a shoulder injury, so those could always elevate because it is your shoulder and you are a pitcher, but I don't think it should be that bad. Overall, I don't think it's going to be that significant for Taijuan Walker, and I think Spencer Turnbull should only be in for a little bit. So I don't think Turnbull is going to be the 5 starter for very long, but still not ideal for the Phillies right now. Right now, going into the season, your 4 starter is Christopher Sanchez. Not great. I mean, simply put, that's just not great. The top 3 of your rotation, very good. Yes, I'm not going to debate that, but just going deeper down, you don't have that much pitching depth with these 2 guys. Now, you have some guys in the minors. You have Andrew Painter, who is coming back from injury, and we're not really sure what his future looks like because of the injuries he has suffered. So that's a guy I think is a question mark for the Phillies right now. After that, you have Mick Abel, who is another question mark, top prospect with them, but we're not entirely sure how well he is going to perform, and how much he can perform with the Phillies if he does get called up. So he's another question mark. So they have some depth. It's just not, in my opinion, reliable depth. I think this could potentially tempt them to go after a veteran starting pitcher, maybe a guy like Jordan Montgomery. Now, there were a lot of rumors involving Montgomery over the weekend, which I'm going to talk about in my last segment, not involving him, but just a part of it. I didn't want to have another segment on Montgomery because at this point, who really wants that? I mean, at this point, just sign or don't sign. Like, we're not dying by every rumor now. Spring training starts. I mean, the MLB season starts this week, and you're not signed. So I think people just want to see him sign and don't really care about the rumors anymore. So when he does sign, I think it'll be in a week or so. I'll be talking about it. Believe me, it'll be my first story, but it hasn't happened yet, so we're not going to be talking about it. But I do think Monty makes a lot of sense for the Phillies. There have been just some overall rumors about the Phillies potentially being a sleeper team involved with him the entire offseason, so I think he could be a good fit there. I, again, think he brings a lot more depth. You would have a top 4 in your rotation of Wheeler, Nola, Montgomery, Suarez, and I mean, that's pretty incredible right there. I mean, that's a really, really good rotation. 3 really, really good starting pitchers. Ranger Suarez, another guy who's very, very good. So I think Montgomery could definitely be a fit. I think he brings a lot more depth to that rotation, especially now with the Walker injury. I don't know if he wants a long-term contract or not at this point. I think if he wants a long-term contract, he will not be getting that from the Phillies. I'll tell you that right now. But if he's willing to settle for a short-term contract like his counterparts, Chapman, Bellinger, Snell, Martinez, and Soler, I think he could potentially look to sign with a very good team like the Phillies. I think if he wants a long-term contract, it's more for a retooling team like the Red Sox. So overall, I do think Monty makes a lot of sense for the Phillies, going after him to get depth, making a run at him now with the Taijuan Walker injury. I don't think they do. Dave Dombrowski kind of hinted that they won't. But again, Dombrowski loves his stars, and I'd say Montgomery has become a star now because of what's happened with Texas, what happened with their World Series run, and him being a big part of that. So I think he could potentially be a big part there, and a really good guy to add to this rotation and be a big part of this Phillies team if they were to add Montgomery later. So I think potentially Montgomery could potentially be a fit, and definitely makes a lot of sense for them. After that, some more exciting news. They extended Matt Strahm on a 1-year deal with a club option for 2026. Strahm came over from the Red Sox and was a really good lefty reliever with Boston. Then came to Philly and was really good there. They tried making him a starter, but it wasn't very successful, and he went back to his roots being a lefty reliever and was good in that role. So that's what I think. That's in the end what I think happens with him. I think it's going to be interesting to see now if they do try and make him a starter again, if the Walker injury is serious. I don't think they will because it's kind of failed before, and if I'm them, I'm looking at the younger guys to make starts like Christopher Sanchez, like Mick Abel, like Andrew Painter. I'd rather not have a 30-year-old reliever who you tried making a starter once and it failed and trying to make him a starter again. Just personally, I think that you try and get the younger guys involved if there is a serious injury. Again, I wouldn't go after Strahm, but overall, I think the re-signing for the Phillies is good. I think it's a good extension. I think Strahm's a really good reliever. I think is one of the better lefty relievers in this game, and I think it's just the Phillies adding more and more to that bullpen, keeping guys around. They already have a great bullpen in there with him, with another guy like Jose Alvarado. So I think they have a really nice bullpen core. Gregory Soto as well, I didn't mention. I'm sure there's other guys I'm forgetting. So I think that Strahm is a good extension by the Phillies and a guy that I would like to see them keep around for their core, and I think really does fit there. After that, we have more bullpen injuries, more bullpen news for the Phillies, and that is about their righty reliever Orion Keckering. Keckering came up last year, showed off his great fastball and slider combo and some other pitches as well that were really nice, and became a really good reliever for the Phillies. Became one of their lockdown guys even as a rookie in the playoffs, especially for them, so has become a big part of their bullpen going in. He is going to be starting the season on the IL with the flu, actually, something that does not happen very often. Apparently, Keckering was fighting really all of camp with the flu, and because of that, won't be ready for opening day and has to build himself up again to get back from it. So it's not an injury, really, just a sickness that went on for a long time, which is something you don't really ever see. So that was definitely interesting. That's definitely interesting that he's out with the flu. Not something I see much, so that's something to watch here. If the flu does affect him, I can't believe I'm saying that, but if it does affect him going into the season and affect his abilities, and if he does kind of falter because of that at the start. So that's definitely something interesting to watch. Again, the flu is a serious thing. I don't want to make it seem like it's not, but for a baseball pitcher, you're kind of expecting an arm injury or a shoulder injury, an elbow injury, something like that. You're not really expecting the flu to keep someone out for the start of the season. So that's something I hadn't really seen for a little while, not something I remember seeing. So just an interesting story there, and it will be interesting to see how Keckering does come back and how much of a part he does play in this Phillies rotation, in this Phillies pitching staff and bullpen. Definitely not rotation because he is not a starter. So, yeah, just the Phillies news I did want to talk about. There were a lot of stuff going on with them over the weekend, kind of surprisingly. A lot of stuff's happening in their division, especially with the Mets signing J.D. Martinez. So maybe they wanted to steal the spotlight for a day, but wasn't really with positive news. Again, Taijuan Walker's hurt, Orion Keckering's hurt, and they extended Matt Strom, which is one piece of good news. Just going over it a tiny bit, Walker, I don't think is a huge deal. I kind of think he's done anyways. I don't think he has much left in the tank. I don't think he's shown much, especially during spring training. I don't think he's that good anymore. So overall, I wouldn't be too worried if I was a Phillies fan. This is not a guy that I think is going to be a huge part of your team. So yeah, not a huge deal if you're a Phillies fan. And overall, I wouldn't be too worried. So that's about Walker. Strom, good re-signing for them. A guy, if I was a Phillies fan, I'd love to see be part of this bullpen core for a long time. So good job by them. Keckering shouldn't be a big deal. They have a lot of bullpens out for the Phillies. They were just recently ranked number one bullpen in the league by MLB.com. So they do have a lot of bullpen depth. A lot of changes from a long time ago. I mean, they had no bullpen in that 2019 season, which is one of the main reasons that they did fail when they signed Bryce Harper. So they've done well now, and overall, it's been really good for them, and I'm glad to see them turn it around, and I'm glad to see them finally have a competent bullpen. So that was the second segment here. We're going to go to our third segment, which is going to be about the Shohei Ohtani and Ippei situation. I'm finally making a full segment on it just to get out my thoughts, personally, what I think could be going on with this. Again, it's kind of more of a legal situation than a baseball situation, but it involves the best player in baseball, so that I did want to talk about it and did want to just share my thoughts on it. So we'll be talking about that, and we'll be going to our second break, and we'll be talking about it more after. So thanks. See you then. Bye.